God said old women will get a wonderful blessing on 30th of November 2025. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters in Christ, today we gather with hearts open and spirits expectant because heaven has spoken a word of hope. God said old women will get a wonderful blessing on 30th of November 2025. God honors the elderly woman's faith because he sees not only the years she has lived, but the journey she has walked, the burden she has carried, and the prayers she has whispered when no one else was listening. Her faith is not something newly planted. It has been tested, refined, stretched, and strengthened through seasons of joy and seasons of deep struggle. Many elderly women have spent years believing for things that seemed impossible, yet they held on. They have prayed for their children and grandchildren, fasted for the well-being of their families, and carried the spiritual weight of generations on their shoulders. Their faith has been shaped by experience, and experience has produced a depth of trust that cannot be easily shaken. When God honors that faith, he is acknowledging a lifetime of spiritual endurance, resilience, and devotion. An elderly woman's faith is often quiet. It is not always expressed through loud declarations or visible demonstrations. Instead, it often shows itself in the form of unwavering consistency, showing up for prayer even when her body is tired, worshiping even when her heart aches, and trusting God even when she has lived long enough to see both triumphs and disappointments. God sees how she has prayed for others more than herself, how she has sacrificed her needs to ensure her family's stability, how she has poured her love into people even when she received little in return. The world may overlook the silent strength of older women, but God never does. He values the faith that has survived storms, endured losses, and remained standing when others would have given up. There is also a special kind of wisdom that comes from walking with God over many years. Elderly women often carry this wisdom like a crown. They have learned what it means to trust God when life makes no sense. They have learned that God's timing is different from theirs and that his ways are higher than their own. Their faith is not based on youthful enthusiasm, but on deep, lived experience with the God who has shown up for them time and time again. They remember the moments when God healed them, protected them, provided for them, and guided them. This history of divine encounters becomes the foundation of unshakable faith. God honors this because such faith becomes a testimony to younger generations who need examples to follow. When God honors the faith of elderly women, he is also honoring their many years of intercession. Countless families survive spiritually because of the prayers of a mother or grandmother. Many breakthroughs happen because of the persistent faith of an elderly woman who never stopped believing. These prayers, often uttered behind closed doors, rise like incense before God. He hears every cry, every plea, every request. Nothing is forgotten. Some blessings take time to reach the earth, but they never disappear. God has stored up answers for the faithful, and in his perfect time, he releases them. When he blesses elderly women, he is rewarding years of spiritual investment. Their faith also reflects a unique dimension of gratitude. Elderly women have learned to thank God in all circumstances. They have lived through ups and downs long enough to realize that gratitude is a powerful form of worship. Even when life seemed unfair, they still praised God. Even when they were overlooked or undervalued, they still honored him. This loyal love for God touches his heart deeply. A lifetime of gratitude carries a fragrance that God treasures, and when he chooses to honor their faith, he does so with generosity. Furthermore, many elderly women have lived lives of service. They have raised children, supported spouses, helped communities, served in churches, and offered counsel, comfort, and care to countless people. They often do these things quietly without seeking recognition. But God sees every act of kindness. He sees the nights spent rocking sick children to sleep. He sees the meals cooked, the tears wiped away, the sacrifices made. He sees the moments when they were exhausted but kept going anyway. He sees the times when they put their own dreams aside so that someone else's dreams could grow. When God honors their faith, he is also honoring their love, their sacrifice, and their lifelong commitment to the well-being of others. Another reason God honors their faith is that many elderly women have held on to hope even in the face of loss. They have buried loved ones, endured sickness, faced financial hardship, and survived seasons of loneliness. Yet through it all, they kept believing in God's goodness. This kind of faith is precious to God because it is faith that has been purified in the fire. It is faith that has chosen to believe even when there was no visible reason to. This depth of trust is powerful, and God delights in blessing the hearts that have remained faithful through many trials. God also honors the elderly woman's faith because he knows her time on earth is precious. He wants her to experience joy, renewal, and honor in her later years. The world often overlooks the elderly, but God declares that they are still valuable, still chosen, still called, and still worthy of blessing. When he pours out his goodness on them, it is a reminder that the story is not over. God is not finished with them. They have not outlived their purpose. There are still blessings reserved specifically for them, blessings delayed but not denied. Finally, honoring the faith of elderly women is part of God's character. In Scripture, he consistently uplifted older women like Sarah, Naomi, and Anna. He restored them, empowered them, and used them to fulfill divine purposes. God is the same today. When he honors the faith of elderly women, he is demonstrating that he remains faithful to those who have been faithful to him. Divine blessings are not limited by age because God's power and purpose operate beyond the boundaries that human beings often place on themselves. While society may sometimes label age as a limitation, suggesting that opportunities decrease, dreams fade, or personal impact diminishes, God does not see age the way humans do. His blessings are not restricted to youth, strength, or societal expectations. In fact, throughout history and Scripture, God has repeatedly shown that he delights in surprising people with blessings at times they least expect, and often in seasons of life when the world assumes that significant change is no longer possible. To God, age is simply a number, not a barrier. His plans are not hindered by years lived, but often enriched by them. Many people believe that blessings are meant primarily for the early stages of life, when one is young and energetic, when one is building a career, raising a family, or starting dreams. But divine blessings flow according to God's timing, not human timing. There are blessings designed specifically for later years, blessings that come after seasons of waiting, learning, growing, and enduring. These blessings are often deeper because they come with greater understanding and appreciation. When God chooses to bless someone later in life, he is demonstrating that his faithfulness spans a lifetime, not a moment, that his love continues through every season, not just the beginning of the journey. Age can bring experiences that prepare a person to receive blessings they may not have been ready for earlier in life. With maturity comes wisdom. With wisdom comes perspective. With perspective comes gratitude. These qualities allow an older person to handle blessings with a depth of appreciation and responsibility that a younger version of themselves may not have had. An older heart has endured challenges, survived losses, and learned lessons that shape its character. These experiences often position someone to receive blessings in a fuller, richer way. God knows this. He orchestrates blessings not according to birth certificates, but according to spiritual readiness. The world often assumes that decline comes with age, but God often brings renewal in later years. A blessing given at an older age can restore joy, revive purpose, and rekindle hope. It can remind a person that their story is still unfolding and that God still has chapters left to write. Divine blessings can take many forms: strength, peace, healing, financial provision, emotional restoration, family reconciliation, or spiritual growth. For the elderly, these blessings often carry tremendous meaning because they come after seasons of perseverance. A delayed blessing is not a denied blessing. Sometimes it is a more meaningful one. God's ability to bless is never confined by physical limitations. One may feel weaker in body, but strength from God does not depend on muscle or youthful vigor. His blessings can lift the weary, restore the brokenhearted, and strengthen the spirit in ways that surpass physical ability. In fact, Scripture shows that God often chooses older individuals for great works and extraordinary blessings. Abraham and Sarah received the promise of a son in their old age. Moses was called at 80 to lead a nation. Anna, an elderly prophetess, was blessed to see the Messiah after decades of devotion. These stories show that God reserves some blessings for the later seasons of life, blessings that reveal his glory and demonstrate his faithfulness. Furthermore, divine blessings are not limited by age because God's purpose for a person does not expire. Humans often draw imaginary timelines for what should happen and when, but God operates on eternal timelines. He can bring opportunities to someone at 20, 50, 70, or 90. He can open doors long after others have closed them. He can bring dreams to life that someone thought they had outgrown. He can fulfill promises that were spoken decades earlier. His blessings often come at the exact moment when they will have the most impact. Sometimes that moment is later in life, when the person has the maturity to understand the blessing and the wisdom to use it well. Older age also brings a unique closeness to God. Life's challenges push many elderly individuals into deeper prayer, deeper dependence, and deeper trust. This spiritual intimacy creates fertile ground for divine blessings. When God pours out blessings on someone with a mature heart, that blessing becomes a testimony to others, a reminder that it is never too late for God to move. Your age does not disqualify you from receiving miracles, breakthroughs, or unexpected favor. If anything, your life experience can make you more ready to receive and appreciate them. Divine blessings in old age also demonstrate God's justice. People who have lived faithfully, loved deeply, served consistently, and given of themselves for years sometimes feel as though their sacrifices have gone unnoticed. But God sees everything. He remembers every prayer, every act of kindness, every quiet moment of obedience. Blessings that come in later life are often God's way of honoring those years of unseen faithfulness. They show that He is a God who rewards perseverance and values the long journey of faith. When blessings come unexpectedly in older age, they also inspire younger generations. They break the lie that meaningful living ends after a certain number of years. They show that God is active in every stage of life. They encourage younger people to remain faithful, knowing that blessings may come at any time. And they inspire hope for those who feel that time has passed them by. God's blessings, in their perfect timing, remind everyone that the best moments of life can happen long after the world expects them to. Divine blessings are not limited by age because God is eternal and His love spans from the first breath to the last. Humans age, but God's promises do not age. Humans grow older, but God's power does not weaken. Humans change, but God's intentions remain steady. When He decides to bless, He blesses fully, freely, and without regard for worldly expectations. Age in His eyes is simply another stage in a beautiful journey of purpose, growth, and grace. A day of restoration and renewal is a divine moment when God chooses to breathe new life into places that have grown weary, broken, or forgotten. It is a day when burdens begin to lift, when long-carried pain begins to dissolve, and when the soul feels strengthened in a way that human effort could never accomplish. Restoration means God is returning something that was lost, repairing something that was damaged, or reviving something that seemed dead. Renewal means God is refreshing the spirit, awakening new hope, and filling the heart with fresh strength and purpose. When both restoration and renewal meet on the same day, it becomes a holy encounter, a moment when heaven touches earth and transformation begins to unfold. For many people, life is a journey filled with seasons of loss, disappointment, hardship, and waiting. Over time, these experiences can leave deep marks on the heart. Dreams that once felt reachable may have slipped away. Relationships may have fractured. Opportunities may have been missed. Strength may have faded. Even faith, though still present, may have felt stretched thin. Yet when God appoints a day for restoration, He does not simply return things to their previous state. He makes them better. He rebuilds stronger foundations, rearranges broken pieces into something more beautiful, and heals wounds in a way that leaves the heart wiser, deeper, and more whole. A day of restoration is often preceded by a long season of endurance. The struggle makes the restoration more meaningful because it shows the power of God's timing. There are things people try to fix on their own but cannot. There are situations that remain unchanged even with all the effort, prayer, and hope poured into them. Then, at a moment chosen by God, everything begins to shift. A hardened heart begins to soften. A closed door begins to open. A broken relationship begins to heal. A fading hope begins to brighten. God restores not only what was lost, but the strength, joy, and confidence that were drained along the way. Restoration touches both the external and the internal. It is God's way of saying that nothing is beyond repair and no story is beyond redemption. Renewal, on the other hand, speaks to the internal transformation that happens when God refreshes the spirit. It is like the feeling of a new morning after a long and exhausting night. It is the sense of breath returning to weary lungs, of peace entering a troubled mind, of calm settling in a storm-tossed heart. Renewal makes a person feel alive again. It revives dreams that were buried under disappointment. It strengthens faith that was weakened by delays. It awakens passions that were silenced by fear. God renews the Spirit by pouring in His peace, His presence, and His power. This renewal is not temporary. It continues to flow as long as a heart remains open to Him. A day of restoration and renewal also represents a divine reset. It is a moment when God rewrites what the enemy tried to damage. It is a moment when years of frustration can be reversed in a single encounter. It is a moment when hidden pain is replaced with unexpected joy. Many people spend years feeling as though they have lost too much time to ever recover what was taken from them. But God's restoration does not follow human logic. He can restore years of loss in ways the mind cannot comprehend. He can multiply blessings, speed up breakthroughs, and bring sudden turnarounds that make up for seasons of suffering. Such a day is often marked by peace that feels unfamiliar in the best way. It is peace that calms the mind, peace that anchors the heart, peace that silences fear. Renewal brings clarity where there was confusion. It brings direction where there was uncertainty. It brings strength where there was exhaustion. This inner renewal becomes the foundation for new beginnings. It enables a person to move forward without the weight of past struggles slowing them down. Restoration and renewal also affect relationships. Some people carry wounds from broken trust, misunderstandings, or long-standing conflicts. On a divine day of restoration, hearts that have been distant can be drawn together. Forgiveness becomes possible. Communication becomes softer. Love becomes stronger. God restores not only relationships with others, but also relationships with oneself. Many people struggle internally, feeling unworthy, unseen, or inadequate. Renewal allows them to see themselves through God's eyes, loved, valued, and chosen. It replaces self-doubt with confidence, fear with courage, and shame with dignity. For the elderly, a day of restoration and renewal holds special significance. It is a reminder that age does not close the door to new blessings. It is a reminder that God still has surprises, healing, and joy prepared for later seasons of life. Restoration can bring back hope that was lost over many years. Renewal can rejuvenate the spirit in ways that feel like a gentle, divine embrace. God does not look at the number of years lived. He looks at the heart that continues to choose faith. He sees the prayers, the tears, the endurance, and He chooses the perfect moment to restore what was taken and renew what was tired. A day of restoration and renewal also serves as confirmation that God has not forgotten His promises. Sometimes people wait so long that they begin to wonder if God has moved on or if they misunderstood what He said. But when restoration arrives, it proves that God remembers every promise, every prayer, and every step of faith. Renewal proves that He is still working, still loving, still guiding, and still preparing greater things ahead. This day becomes a turning point. It marks the moment when the old season finally ends and a new one begins. It marks the moment when heaviness lifts and lightness takes its place. It marks the moment when faith is strengthened, hope rises, and joy returns. Restoration rebuilds what life tried to take away. Renewal refreshes what time tried to drain. Together they create a beautiful testimony of God's faithfulness, showing that no matter what has been lost, broken, or delayed, God has the power to make all things new. God is bringing joy after seasons of tears because He is the God who sees every moment of sorrow, every silent cry, and every hidden struggle. He is not distant from pain nor indifferent to suffering. When people walk through long seasons of tears, they often feel unseen or forgotten, but God's heart is deeply connected to every moment of their grief. He collects their tears, understands their wounds, and remembers the prayers they whispered when no one else was around. When He promises joy after sorrow, it is not a casual statement. It is a declaration rooted in His compassion, His faithfulness, and His deep desire to restore what life has taken away. Seasons of tears come in many forms. Some tears come from loss, losing loved ones, losing opportunities, losing strength, losing stability. Others come from disappointment or broken expectations, when plans fall apart or dreams fade. Some tears come from loneliness, especially in later years, when life becomes quieter and memories begin to outweigh new experiences. Others cry because they have carried heavy responsibilities for too long without rest. Tears can flow from heartbreak, betrayal, illness, financial hardship, or simply the exhaustion of enduring too much for too long. God sees it all. Not one tear is meaningless to Him. Not one night of crying escapes His notice. When God says he is bringing joy after seasons of tears, it means he is responding to the weight of those sorrows with a new outpouring of his goodness. Joy is not just happiness, it is a deep inner strength that lifts the heart and gives the soul new breath. Joy is a healing balm that restores what grief has worn down. God's joy is powerful because it does not depend on circumstances. It comes from his spirit, his presence, and his love. When he gives joy, it reaches places inside a person that sorrow once occupied. It fills the empty places. It warms the cold places. It lights up the dark places. Joy after tears means God is turning mourning into dancing. For those who have cried over their families, he brings joy in the form of healing, unity, and reconciliation. For those who have cried over illness, he brings joy through strength, comfort, or unexpected recovery. For those who have cried over loneliness, he brings joy by surrounding them with love, companionship, and renewed purpose. For those who have cried over disappointments, he brings joy by opening new doors, reviving dreams, or giving peace that surpasses understanding. Joy does not erase the past, but it transforms the heart so the past no longer steals the future. Many elderly women have walked through decades of tears, tears for children, grandchildren, marriages, finances, health, and moments of deep isolation. They have cried in silence, keeping their pain hidden so they could stay strong for others. They have cried in prayer, offering their burdens to God when they had no one else to turn to. They have cried because life has been harder than they ever expected. When God says he is bringing joy after these seasons of tears, it is a promise of divine reversal. It means he is stepping into their story with healing in his hands and hope in his voice. It means he is restoring what sorrow tried to steal: peace, laughter, strength, and purpose. God's joy after tears often comes unexpectedly. It may come through a surprising blessing, a renewed relationship, a moment of spiritual breakthrough, or a sudden sense of peace that settles deep in the heart. Sometimes it comes slowly, rising like the sun after a long night. Other times it comes suddenly, like light bursting through the clouds. But when his joy comes, it changes everything. It softens hardened places, refreshes the weary, and brings clarity to a mind once clouded by grief. It reminds a person that their story is not defined by sorrow, but by God's ability to bring beauty out of pain. Joy after tears also means God is restoring dignity. Sorrow can make people feel small, forgotten, or defeated, but joy lifts them back up. It reminds them of their worth. It reminds them that they are loved, valued, and chosen by God. It gives them back the confidence and hope that sadness once buried. God's joy honors the resilience of those who kept believing even when they were hurting. It honors the strength of those who didn't give up. It honors the faith of those who cried but continued to trust him. In Scripture, God often saved the greatest joy for those who endured the deepest sorrow. Hannah cried for years before receiving her miracle. Naomi suffered loss before finding restoration. Anna prayed for decades before seeing the Messiah. Their stories reveal a truth that remains the same today. God does not waste tears. He transforms them into testimonies. The greater the sorrow, the deeper the joy he brings. Those who have cried much are often the ones who will experience God's joy most profoundly. When God brings joy after seasons of tears, it is his way of closing old chapters and opening new ones. It is his way of saying the suffering was not the end of the story. It is his way of healing wounds that have been open for too long. It is his way of breathing new life into souls that thought their best days were behind them. Joy becomes a sign that restoration has begun, that hope is alive, and that God is still working behind the scenes. This joy is not temporary. It becomes a lasting gift, a steady strength, a source of peace that remains even when new challenges arise. It becomes a reminder that God is faithful, that he remembers every tear, and that he always has a plan to bring his children into a place of greater joy than they have ever known. Families will see healing and breakthroughs because God is moving in ways that touch the deepest parts of human relationships, restoring what has been broken and renewing what has been strained. Every family carries both joy and pain. There are memories that bring laughter, and there are wounds that bring tears. Families face conflicts, misunderstandings, generational struggles, and long-standing tensions that sometimes feel impossible to resolve. But when God steps into the family story, he brings a power that softens hearts, changes attitudes, and opens doors for reconciliation. No matter how long the hurt has existed or how wide the distance has become, God's healing reaches deeper than any pain and his breakthroughs open paths where there once were walls. Family wounds can run deep. They come from misunderstandings, words spoken in anger, betrayal, neglect, or simply the pressures of life. Many families experience silence where there should be communication, or distance where there should be closeness. Some families have lived under the weight of generational patterns like fear, poverty, addiction, or conflict. These patterns can travel through decades, influencing the lives of children, grandchildren, and even great-grandchildren. But when God brings healing, he does not just address one moment or one issue. He goes to the root of the pain. He breaks generational cycles and plants seeds of peace, unity, and restoration that can transform future generations. Healing in families often begins with softened hearts. God can touch the heart of someone who has been angry for years, turning bitterness into compassion. He can open the heart of someone who has been closed off, allowing them to speak truth with gentleness instead of hostility. He can remind family members of the love that once united them and remove pride that keeps them apart. Healing does not mean the past is erased, but it means the past no longer controls the future. When God heals a family, the atmosphere changes. Conversations become easier. Forgiveness becomes possible. Understanding begins to grow where confusion once lived. Breakthroughs work differently, but just as powerfully. A breakthrough is when something shifts suddenly after years of no progress. It is when a situation that seems stuck begins to move. Families may pray for years for a child to return home, a spouse to change, or harmony to be restored. They may pray for unity that never seems to come. But breakthroughs happen in God's timing, not human timing. When the breakthrough comes, it can happen in a single moment through a phone call, a simple apology, a change of heart, or a divine encounter. Breakthroughs show that God has been working behind the scenes all along, preparing hearts and aligning circumstances. For elderly women especially, this promise is powerful. Many of them have spent decades praying for their families, praying for peace among siblings, salvation for children, protection for grandchildren, or stability for their households. They have cried, fasted, and carried emotional burdens because of family division or pain. They have watched relationships fall apart, watched addictions destroy loved ones, or watched misunderstandings turn into long-term separation. They often feel powerless to fix things, but they never stop praying. When God promises that families will see healing and breakthroughs, he is responding to these years of intercession. He is honoring the prayers that were whispered in faith, even when the situation looked impossible. Healing also brings new beginnings. When God restores a family, he can bring back laughter where there was silence. He can bring back unity where there was division. He can rebuild trust that was once shattered. He can give people the ability to forgive and move forward without carrying the heavy weight of resentment. Healing often begins with small steps. One conversation, one act of kindness, one moment of honesty. But each small step becomes part of a larger transformation. God can turn hearts toward one another again, heal old wounds, and create a sense of stability that was lost long ago. Breakthroughs can also come in the form of new opportunities for families. They may experience financial breakthroughs that lift them out of generational poverty, or spiritual breakthroughs that bring revival into the home. Some families may experience breakthroughs in communication, finally understanding each other after years of misalignment. Others may see breakthroughs in relationships that once seemed permanently broken. A child who was rebellious may return home humbled and ready to make amends. A parent who was distant may suddenly show love and accountability. A divided family may come together again because of God's intervention. God's healing and breakthroughs also remove shame from families. Some families carry secrets, regrets, or mistakes that create emotional barriers. Others carry guilt from things they wish they had done differently. Healing brings freedom from the burden of the past. Breakthroughs bring clarity and direction for the future. When God touches a family, he brings light into hidden places and truth into confusing situations. Nothing remains too broken for him to fix, and nothing is too complicated for him to unravel. Families will also see healing through restored respect among generations. Elderly women, often the spiritual anchors of families, will be honored. Younger generations will begin to appreciate their wisdom and sacrifices. Relationships between mothers and daughters, grandmothers and grandchildren, siblings, spouses, and relatives will begin to strengthen. Time together will become more meaningful, and the home will become a place of peace rather than tension. Breakthroughs may come through forgiveness, both giving it and receiving it. Forgiveness is one of the hardest things for families, but it is also the most transformative. When God softens hearts, forgiveness becomes easier. It becomes a gift one gives not because the other person deserves it, but because the heart is ready to let go. Through forgiveness, relationships rebuild stronger than before, and peace flows more freely. When families see healing and breakthroughs, it becomes a testimony of God's power. It shows that no situation is too far gone, no relationship too damaged, no heart too hardened for God to reach. It proves that every prayer, every tear, and every moment of hope mattered. God's healing restores what was broken, and his breakthroughs open doors to a future filled with unity, peace, and love. This is a call to prepare with expectation, because when God announces a blessing, he invites his people to position their hearts, minds, and lives to receive what he is about to do. Preparation is an expression of faith. Expectation is the atmosphere in which miracles grow. When God speaks a promise, especially a promise connected to a specific time, it is not meant to be heard passively. It is meant to stir action, awaken anticipation, and create a posture of readiness. Preparation is how we align ourselves with what God has planned. Expectation is how we welcome it. To prepare with expectation means to believe that something good is coming even before it arrives. It means shifting from doubt to belief, from fear to hope, and from waiting passively to waiting purposefully. When people expect a blessing from God, they begin to act differently. Their prayers become more confident. Their thoughts become more joyful. Their hearts become more open. They stop focusing on obstacles and start focusing on promises. Expectation is powerful because it shows trust in God's timing and confidence in his faithfulness. It says, I believe God will do exactly what he said. Preparation also involves cleansing the heart of anything that could hinder the blessing. This may include bitterness, fear, discouragement, or even old wounds that have never been fully healed. When people prepare for what God is about to release, they make room for him to move. They let go of the weights that have held them down. They release the past so it does not interfere with the new thing God is bringing. Preparation is not about perfection. It is about readiness. It is saying, God, whatever you want to do, I am open. Whatever you want to give, I am ready. Whatever you want to lead, I will follow. Preparing with expectation requires spiritual sensitivity. It means listening for God's voice more closely, paying attention to his guidance, and staying connected to him through prayer, worship, and reflection. This kind of preparation creates a heart that can recognize God's hand even in small beginnings. Many great blessings start quietly, growing slowly until they suddenly burst forth. Those who are spiritually prepared are the first to notice the signs. They see God's movement where others see ordinary moments. They hear his whisper where others hear nothing. This sensitivity comes from staying close to him, expecting him to speak, and believing he will reveal the right steps at the right time. Preparation also involves strengthening faith. Expectation is a spiritual muscle that grows stronger the more it is used. When people prepare with expectation, they train their hearts to believe even when circumstances seem unchanged. They remind themselves of God's past faithfulness. They meditate on his promises. They speak words of faith instead of words of doubt. They refuse to let discouragement steal what God has planned. Strengthened faith creates a clear path for God's blessing to manifest because faith attracts what God desires to release. Those who prepare with expectation often experience inner transformation long before the outward blessing appears. Their mindset shifts. Their emotions stabilize. Their spirit becomes lighter. They begin to feel joy, hope, and strength even while they wait. This is because expectation creates anticipation, and anticipation creates spiritual momentum. God honors those who prepare for his promises. He sees their readiness, their belief, and their willingness to receive. When people expect and prepare, they activate God's timing in their lives. For elderly women especially, this call to prepare with expectation is deeply meaningful. Many of them have waited for blessings for years, prayed for breakthroughs for decades, and hoped for change even when the world told them it was too late. Preparation with expectation reminds them that God has not forgotten. It tells them to lift their heads, strengthen their hearts, and prepare for what is coming. They may feel that their season for blessings has passed, but God says otherwise. Their preparation becomes a statement of faith that age does not limit God. That time does not weaken his promises, and that he is still capable of surprising them with new joy. Preparing with expectation also involves practical steps. It may mean making peace with someone before the blessing comes. It may mean organizing life, cleaning the home, or setting things in order. It may mean becoming emotionally ready for joy after a long season of sorrow. It may mean preparing spiritually by praying more deeply, reading scripture with fresh eyes, or seeking quiet moments to listen to God. Practical preparation shows God that we trust him enough to act now, even before the blessing visibly appears. Expectation also shifts the atmosphere of the home. When people prepare with expectation, they speak differently around their family. They encourage instead of criticize. They uplift instead of complain. They bring hope into conversations. Their expectation influences their children, grandchildren, and loved ones. It creates an environment where blessings can flourish. Expectation is contagious. When one person believes, others begin to believe too. God often moves in the lives of those who prepare because preparation signals faith. Faith pleases God. It shows that we trust him more than circumstances, more than time, and more than our own understanding. Preparation and expectation work together like a seed and soil. Expectation is the seed of belief planted in the heart. Preparation is the soil in which that belief grows. When both are present, the harvest of blessing comes in due season. This call to prepare with expectation is a reminder that God's promises are real, his timing is perfect, and his blessings are intentional. Those who prepare will not be caught off guard. They will be ready to receive, ready to rejoice, and ready to step into the new things God has prepared for them. So let us rejoice. Let us celebrate every mother, grandmother, widow, and elder among us. Let them know their story is not ending. It is entering its most beautiful chapter. For God has spoken, old women will get a wonderful blessing on 30th of November 2025. And if God said it, it shall come to pass. Thank you, and may God bless you all richly.